You just met someone at a party. They told you their name, you smiled, you nodded, and 10 seconds later, it's completely gone. Not fuzzy, gone. Like it was never there. And here's the thing, you remember their shirt. You remember they mentioned they have a dog. You remember thinking they seemed cool. But the name, zero. So, what actually is going on inside your brain when that happens? Because it's not random, it's not rude, and it is definitely not just you being careless. There's actually a fascinating psychological reason this happens. And once you understand it, you'll never feel bad about it again. So, let's get into it. And first, let's look at why names are so uniquely, almost unfairly, easy to forget. Here's something that will immediately make you feel better. Forgetting names is one of the most universal memory complaints on the planet. Psychologists have studied this for decades, and there's actually a name for it. It's called the Baker/Baker paradox. Here's how it works. If I tell you someone's job is a baker, you picture flour, an oven, bread, maybe a little apron. Your brain anchors that information to a whole web of images and associations. But if I tell you someone's last name is Baker, there's nothing to grab onto. The word baker just floats there in your brain with no hook, no picture, no story attached to it. And that is the entire problem with names. They're completely arbitrary sounds. Your name doesn't tell me anything about you. James doesn't reveal your personality. Sophia doesn't describe how you look. There's no logical reason for your brain to hold on to it, so it doesn't. This isn't a memory failure. This is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do, filtering out information that seems low in meaning. But here's what makes it even trickier. And this is the part most people never think about. It's not just that names lack meaning, it's that your attention is barely even there when the name is said in the first place. Let's talk about that. The moment you're introduced to someone new, your brain is doing about 15 things at once. It's scanning their face, it's picking up on their body language, it's comparing them to people you already know, it's deciding whether this person is a friend or a threat. It's managing your own anxiety about how you're coming across. And somewhere in the middle of all of that chaos, someone says a name, one word, spoken once, usually quietly, sometimes mumbled, often buried inside, "Hi, your brain never had a chance." Researchers call this encoding failure. The name never got stored in the first place, not because your memory is bad, but because your attention was already maxed out. And the people who seem to be great with names, they figured out a trick. They're not smarter, they're not more focused. They've just learned how to pause everything else for literally 2 seconds and make the name stick. But we'll come back to those techniques in a bit, because first, let's talk about the type of person who forgets names more than average, because this part is going to genuinely surprise you. Studies on memory and personality have found something kind of counterintuitive. People who are more socially engaged, people who are genuinely curious about others, who lean in and ask questions, who are fully present in conversation, actually tend to forget names more often. Why? Because they're too busy being interested in the person to process the label. Meanwhile, the person who stands there thinking, James, 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 I must remember James, is technically paying more attention to the name, but less attention to the actual human being in front of them. So, in a weird way, forgetting someone's name can be a sign that you're actually a good listener. You got swept up in the conversation. You cared about what they were saying. The name just got lost in the process. There's also a strong link with people who are highly creative or who have busy, fast moving minds. If your brain is constantly making connections and jumping between ideas, it's naturally less efficient at rote memorization. Artists, entrepreneurs, writers, these groups consistently report higher rates of name forgetting. Your brain is full. Something has to give. That's the personality side of things. But there's another layer here that goes even deeper. And honestly, it's the one that affects the most people. It's the social anxiety factor. And once you see how it works, everything clicks. Let's get into that now. For a lot of people, like forgetting names isn't just inconvenient and it's mortifying, and that shame response, it actually makes the problem worse. Here's what happens. You meet someone, the name comes in, but at the exact same moment, a little voice in the back of your head goes, "Don't mess this up. Make a good impression, seem confident, be charming." That voice, that's your threat system activating, a mild version of fight or flight. And when your threat system fires up even slightly, your hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for memory formation, gets less blood flow, less resources, less priority, because your brain thinks there are more important things to deal with right now. So the more anxious you feel about making a good first impression, the less likely you are to remember the name of the person you're trying to impress. It is a genuinely cruel loop. And then afterward, the shame of having forgotten makes you even more anxious the next time. Which makes you more likely to forget again. Understanding this loop is the first step to breaking it. Because once you realize it's not a character flaw, it's a neurological response to social stress, you can start working with your brain instead of fighting it. And to really understand how to work with it, it helps to see exactly what your brain is doing in those few seconds when a name comes in. So, let me give you a quick mental model that makes the whole thing click. Think of your working memory, the short term holding space in your brain, like a whiteboard, a very small whiteboard. Scientists estimate it can hold about 4 pieces of information at once. 4, not 10, not 20. 4. When you meet someone, that whiteboard's already covered. It's got your social anxiety on it. It's got your awareness of your body language on it. It's got the noise in the room. It's got the thing you were thinking about right before you walked over. The name, it's the fifth thing. It doesn't fit unless, and this is the key, you erase something to make room for it. That's what people with great name memory are doing. They've developed a habit of mentally clearing space the moment they're about to be introduced. They take a breath, they stop their internal monologue, they create a blank slot. And here's the most useful thing I can tell you: you only need to hold the name for about 10 to 15 seconds, just long enough to say it back once or twice and connect it to a single vivid image. After that, it moves from working memory into longer term storage and it's yours. 10 seconds of real focus. That's the entire game. So now that you know why the name slips, let's talk about the actual techniques that fix it. And these aren't generic tips you've heard before. These are grounded in exactly what we've just covered, so they actually make sense to use. The first technique is the simplest and the most effective. Repeat the name immediately. As soon as someone says their name, use it. "It's great to meet you, Sarah." That one
Hi, I'm
repetition
Sarah.
doubles
It's
your
great
odds
to
of
meet you,
remembering
Sarah.
it. It's not awkward, it's actually warm. The second one is association. Link the name to something visual or absurd. If someone's name is Marcus, maybe you picture a Roman soldier. If someone's name is Lily, you see a flower. Sounds silly, works incredibly well. The weirder the image, the better it sticks. The third technique is to ask a question that includes the name. So, Marcus, how do you know the host? You've now used the name twice in a natural way, and you've connected it to a real piece of information about them. And the fourth, this one's underrated, is just giving yourself permission to ask again. Saying, "I'm so sorry, I want to make sure I get your name right," is not embarrassing. It is almost universally received as a compliment. It signals that you care. People love that. The only thing more awkward than asking for a name again is calling someone hey for 3 years because you were too afraid to admit you forgot. Now, those are the practical fixes. But I want to zoom out for a second because there's a bigger insight underneath all of this, one that changes how you feel about this whole thing, not just how you handle it. And I think it's actually the most important part of this entire video. The reason we care so much about forgetting names, the reason it produces shame rather than just mild inconvenience, is that we've been taught names equal respect. If you remembered, it means you cared. If you forgot, it means you didn't. But that's not actually how memory works. Memory isn't a measure of how much you value someone, it's a biological system with real limits, real quirks, and real vulnerabilities, especially under social pressure, especially for information that lacks natural context. The person who forgets your name while looking you in the eyes, genuinely engaged in what you're saying, that person might care about you far more than the one who remembered your name, but spent the whole conversation scanning the room for someone more important. We've confused the symbol of care with the substance of it. And once you see that, once you extend that same grace to yourself, something loosens. You stop the shame spiral. You stop catastrophizing every awkward, hey, you moment. You start being present in conversations instead of frantically rehearsing a name in the background. And ironically, you start remembering names better because you're not scared anymore, which brings us right to the close. And honestly, the simplest takeaway from everything we've covered today. So the next time you blank on a name, don't spiral. Your brain was probably just busy being human, paying attention to something it found more interesting, running a social threat assessment, doing 11 things at once like it always does. You're not forgetful. You're not rude. You're not broken. You're just working with a brain that was built for survival, not social record keeping. Give it a little help, a repetition here, a visual hook there, and it'll surprise you. And if you found this useful, you'll probably like the one I did on people who don't use social media. See you there.